York City is considered the most forward-thinking district when it comes to AI policy.
There's a lot of organizations that have rapidly adapted in the education space to supporting AI implementation, particularly like high school students and some high school leaders. So we have some students creating their own tools. We're really allowing both tech, leadership.
Administration recently. Well, welcome everyone to the Tea and Tech. This is episode number 2, and I'm so excited to be here with none other than Tara. And Tara, you and I have like a really funny story about how we met. And I don't know, do you want to tell it?
Sure, I would love to tell it because it was very, very synergistic for sure.
Yeah.
I saw a post of yours on LinkedIn.
That's right.
That spoke to my heart and my thinking about big tech and AI and education, and also the connection between, how are we talking about this in different sectors? How are we actually like connecting these points? Like, it was really just a provocative question of like, what do people think when we break it down to the facts?
Right, so beyond politics and like to the policy of it all.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. I forgot it was that post, but you're right. And then who knew LinkedIn, serendipitous connector of it all. And we started DMing, I think, and then you invited me to a conference.
Yes. Yeah. I was speaking at Stanford for an AI in education event, and it just so happens, I was like, I wonder if I knew that Meghna lived in California, lived in Silicon Valley. And I was like, Stanford's close to Silicon Valley. Maybe she's close to Palo Alto where I was staying. So I'm like, hey, this is random, but do you happen to live in the area? And you're like, yes, I do. I was like, can we meet? And then we did.
Unbelievable.
And now we're here.
The rest is history. I mean, Tara, look, I think we've talked about this offline, but the reason I wanted you to come on the Tea and Tech as an early guest is, I'm here in the Silicon Valley and we're talking about AI all day, right? Like dinner parties, work, whatever. But, not enough people are talking about the future generation and how they're using AI, how they're going to be educated on AI. And even when we are having those conversations, we don't have the educators in the room. So what I wanted to do was, my audience is all a bunch of tech people and tech curious people. And I think we need someone like you to tell us what's up in AI and education, what's working and what's not. And it'd be amazing if you could kind of introduce yourself, because I know like my audience is going to freak out when they hear the amazing things you do.
Well, yes. So first of all, thank you for having me. It's very exciting to be here. My name is Carrozza. I'll give you a little bit of my background. I work for New York City Public Schools as Director of Digital Learning and Innovation. I'm also a mom to a 5 and 7-year-old who I experienced the pandemic as a parent. I also was part of a team that led the shift to remote learning for the largest public school district in the country. And I think for the audience, what to get curious about is everyone who you see in either leadership roles or educator roles in education might not be their only career. So prior to coming into education, I actually was a post-production supervisor for indie feature films. And then before that, I did acting and presenting. And then before that, in college, I played basketball and I actually studied economics.
That's a surprise to me. That's so cool.
Yes. So I was really like on the track to working in finance. And then I got this opportunity to take a 5th year because I hadn't studied abroad from playing basketball. Went to London, studied acting, and I studied some more, but I got a job at a production company to make ends meet. And so, my career path is very varied, both in the private and then public sector in terms of education. So I think to get curious from tech, who are the leaders in education? Do they have technical backgrounds and skills that we might not be seeing? And then how can they contribute and add value to accelerate either your for-profit company, non-for-profit, and really accelerate education and the strength of America as a whole?
I love that. And just so everyone knows, the New York City Public Schools have one of the biggest or the biggest budget. What is that number again? It's insane.
It's $40 billion total per year. Yeah. And we support almost 1 million students. And that budget is broken down per district, per school. and different allocations. So there's, for every school district in America, there's a different funding mechanism or federal funding breakdown from federal to state to local of a per pupil cost. And so New York City does have one of the higher end per pupil costs for each student in New York City. But you can look at it across the country. Every single public school district will have a per pupil cost, i.e. what it costs that community to send each individual student to public school.
Yeah, it's funny because when I thought, and the first time we met too, I was so impressed by that number, $40 billion, and obviously the huge population of students. And it kind of reminds me of, when I used to work at Meta, it's like just instantly, because you're working at such a big district with such a big budget, you have scale, you have access, right?
Mm-hmm.
So any product we shipped at Instagram automatically saw, millions of users. For you, any policy or digital initiative that you launch is automatically reaching, several, I'd say hundreds, right, of thousands of students. And I think that really came through in your Stanford speech. And actually you said a quote that I really liked, which was that AI in education isn't a school issue. It's a national survival strategy. So I think on that point, what comes to mind is your district, right? So let's use that as a little bit of a case study. And I think the New York City Public Schools are considered the most forward thinking when it comes to AI. And so tell us a little about kind of the policies that, we've seen they've implemented and what's really worked.
Sure. I mean, I think we're definitely one of the more forward K-12 districts. I never like to speak in absolutes. I'm always, a yes and leader and person. And so, as you know, Miami-Dade has come out with some great aspirations around training.
And I'm just going to quickly jump in. There's a Times article about this, but basically Miami is the first to institute a district-wide AI policy. Is that what it was?
I mean, there's a lot of organizations that have rapidly adapted in the education space to supporting AI implementation.
Helpful for everyone to hear from you on, what are the policies that you've implemented to get, the city this far? But then also what's working really well.
But for students and for schools, particularly like high school students and some high school leaders who are really forward thinking and also behaving in technology, we didn't want to hold back those folks from innovating and those early adopters of really iterating what it can look like. So we have some students creating their own tools. We have hackathons or build-a-thons, I should say, not hackathons, build-a-thons, prompt-a-thons. And so we're really allowing both tech, leadership, and then the field and the different stakeholders to co-create and co-design what this moment looks like, understanding there's an urgency and a timing. There's a sense of urgency to this, and not even a sense of urgency. There's a real urgency to this because tech's not waiting for us. Tech is not waiting for education.
There's a stat here that I wanted to share, which is that only 12% of high poverty schools have AI training. And I think that just kind of doubles down on this gap that AI is accessible to everyone, but the training and the education has to come from the schools.
Digital skills don't show up cohesively and integrated across our core curriculum yet. Come at it from a point of both equity and profitability. Because they're not separate.
They're not separate. And look, I think the final kind of question I had on this line was administration recently released an executive order on AI. And I think you and I had a conversation about it.
Well, I personally was happy to see that the administration had, taken a moment to go, what do we want to do in this space? But what I think the biggest focus of it and exciting part of it for me as an employee of the K-12 system is that it's focused on K-12. And you don't often get an executive order that solely calls out work in this space. And so I really applaud the administration and the strategic focus of going hey, this is our focus area where our investment is going to. We're not just saying this is what states need to do. We're saying this is where we're going to invest because we know the future of America starts with revolutionizing our education system to meet the need right now and the reality of the world we live in. And I think that sometimes gets missed in education, of like, there's this huge world of finance and tech, and like, there's that world that never really makes its way to the consciousness of either people working in education or the educational experience. And I think that needs to change, and I hope the executive order can help to do that.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's almost setting a policy framework up for the conversation we just had, right? In a way, it's kind of saying, hey, we admit that K-12 is important and we need to prioritize tech in this kind of stage of life for students. And so I think it's very interesting and frankly, like pretty forward thinking.
I think it is too. I also think, we can't, again, me talking as Tara, as a former business person in the private sector, now working in public education, as a mom, as just a citizen of the United States, we can't take away the fact that like resources and funding are going to be coming from this executive order. And as a result of that, it's already by default changing the consciousness of how different industries are looking at K-12 AI and the future of America based on how we're equipping our students and our youth with AI-ready skills. And so I think one of the really interesting things to think about is, how do we redefine literacy in the age of AI? It's not singular anymore. So there's foundational literacy, foundational mathematics, there's information literacy, there's media literacy, there's data literacy, there's other types of computer science literacies, there's, computational thinking, and, there's so many different components of literacy that are predicated on learning foundational math and literacy. And then there's the component of digital skills, which by definition in America, digital equity is the combination of both access to high quality internet access and digital skills. Digital skills don't show up cohesively and integrated across our core curriculum yet. In some other countries, they do. Some other countries have ICT programs and digital skilling from pre-K onwards. And so we don't have necessarily that unified approach yet. But I do think one of the things I hope from this executive order is what it'll also bring up as our areas, our problem areas as a nation, that then we can really focus in on addressing the bigger problems to accelerate our overall growth. And where we put our investments versus singular investments in like isolated public partnerships.
And we have to stop lying to ourselves that the rest of the world isn't thinking about AI and tech as a form of national foreign policy, national policy, domestic policy, right? Like, look at China, right? I mean, even their corporations like DeepSeek release the models open source, right? And the way they build is very differently. It's integrated into the government in a different way. So like, if there's other nations thinking about AI as part of their strategies, like, we need to be 10 steps ahead of that. So I think this is exactly the point.